The design team at EA and BioWare did not expect Dragon Age Origins to be the success that it was and had not planned out for sequels. When the game was released and got highly positive reviews, a sequel was inevitable, and sure enough, Dragon Age 2 was announced on July 9th, 2010. They said it was their goal to introduce better graphics and an improved combat system. They got one of those things right, at least. After the inspired title of Origins, a game about beginnings, they needed to come up with another great title for the second game. Well then, that's how we're gonna be, huh? Seriously though, the title of the next game is Dragon Age Inquisition. Heck, even the DLCs for the series have awesome names. Dragon Age Awakening, Dragon Age Legacy, Dragon Age Mark of the Assassin, The Descent Trespasser. I mean, the best you can do is a Roman numeral 2. It may not have even been that bad, but the original title of the game was Dragon Age Exodus. That's like a million times cooler. The game was introduced with a frankly really awesome trailer. Even better than the one from Origins, it clearly paints Hawke as a warrior mage, and Arishok as a terrifying and powerful villain. You just know you're gonna get into a good game watching this, right? Right? Let's just get one thing out in the open. Remember how large the world felt in Origins? Remember how you could choose between human, elf, or dwarf? Yeah, you can still choose Hawke's gender, you can still choose between the three classes, but you can only be human. That's not the only thing either. Remember how expansive the world felt? How enjoyable it was to explore and learn about the different cultures? Well, I hope you like cities and caves, because that's all you're going to get. Not even cities and caves plural. You're just going to get the same city with the same cave. They try to mask it by setting up different quests in different parts of the same caves and cities, but they're clearly the same maps. Seriously, this is a huge step backwards for the series. Even the characters acknowledge how this is bullcrap.
How can you tell? Every part of this dungeon looks exactly the same.
You too? I thought it was just me.
I have to be fair. The limits could be for one of two reasons. Reason one being, the game was meant to be more cinematic at its core, focusing on the emotions of an individual rather than the grandiose ideas and world-building concepts. The second, and honestly more probable reason, was that the game was rushed during development. Dragon Age Origins was announced in 2004 and came out in 2009. Dragon Age 2 was announced in July 2010 and came out in March 2011. While they were probably working on it before it was officially announced, that's still only roughly a year in production. That's not a lot of time. And to be fair, for such a rushed production schedule, this game is still really, really decent. There are a lot of other games with shortened time spans that have fared far worse than their final product. The game is still heavily influenced by the mechanics of BioWare's previous Knights of the Old Republic titles, but now also has some elements of the Mass Effect series, including a fully voiced protagonist and the introduction of the dialogue wheel. Another feature worth mentioning is the consequences of what class you choose. Your main character, Hawke, has two siblings in the game, but only one of them will live through the prologue sequence. If you choose to make Hawke a warrior or rogue, Hawke's apostate sister Bethany will live and join you on your quests. However, if you choose to make Hawke a mage, then Bethany will die in the prologue and you'll be joined by Hawke's warrior brother Carver. And here's my first bit of real personal preference for this game. Bethany Hawke is one of my favorite characters of the series, not just as a character, but also how she functions as a party member. Carver Hawke, on the other hand, is one of my least favorite characters in the entire series, and that's saying something since Anders is also in this game.
Right now, I'm not a Grey Warden. I'm your sister.
You make him understand. We're running from your bloody Templars.
The story starts with the dwarf Varric Tethris being interrogated by a mysterious figure named Seeker Cassandra Pentagast, who is searching for information about Hawke, the champion of Kirkwall. The plot, as told by Varric, falls into a somewhat non-conventional 3-act structure which spans 7 years in-game. Act 1 starts with Hawke and his family coming as refugees to the city of Kirkwall, north of Ferelden in the land of the Free Marches. As you can imagine, as refugees, they're living poor in the slums. Hawke and Bethany join an expedition into the Deep Roads in an attempt to gain enough coin to move their mother out of the slums and into the nicer part of town. Basically, imagine moving your mother from the south side of Chicago to the downtown area. The Hawke siblings are joined by Varric and fellow refugee and resident badass, Eveline Valen. Along the way, they also meet several other friends, including Dalish blood mage Meryl, pirate captain Isabella, smooth, buttery-voiced, anime-haired Fenris, former Grey Warden mage Anders, Kunori agent Talus, and Sebastian... Wait, what? I'll be perfectly honest, I had no idea this guy even existed until I started researching this video. Okay, further headed upon this script, I literally played through the entire game twice more, trying to find Sebastian before I finally figured out he's a DLC-only character. Okay, so that's just a side note. They form your full party, and each has his or her own unique set of skills. It's worth mentioning that Meryl, Isabella, and Anders all appeared in Origins, and all three had different appearances and voice actors.
I have 3 angels, Fortitude, Truth, and Charity, and the Night of Dawn. I win.
Someone from my past has been pestering me. I've arranged for a duel. If I win, he leaves me alone.
So they kept saying, although come to think of it, there's no real way to know for sure, is there?
But my anger, when I see Templars now, things that have always outraged me, but I could never do anything about.
They're an old order that saved us from Darkspawn in the past, but I thought they died out long ago.
You're not really seeing the Dalish at their best. We're good people that look out for each other. Just not today, apparently.
Eventually, you finally raise enough money and influence to go on the expedition, and you're unknowingly faced with the game's first huge decision. One way or another, Hawk's sibling will leave the party at the end of Act 1. What you choose will determine what happens to them. If you take them with you into the deep roads, they'll die. If you take them with you, but you also bring Anders, they won't die, but they'll join the Grey Wardens. However, if you don't take them into the deep roads at all, Bethany will be arrested by the Templars and taken to the Circle of Magi, and Carver will be a total jerk and become a Templar. Seriously, that is such a douchey move. So the fortune you gain in the Deep Roads expedition allows you to buy your mother's childhood home 3 years later. Tension is building between the Kirkwall government and the Kunari forces who have been camping out in the compound near the docks. While the Kunari and their leader, the Arishok, definitely have a presence in Act 1, they really become important in this part of the game, with the tension eventually boiling over. The Arishok invades Kirkwall, and you have a final duel with him to become the champion of Kirkwall after his defeat. There's just one really awkward note about this. Remember the trailer we talked about earlier? The one with Hawk fighting the Arishok? You probably figured he'd be the main antagonist of the game. And I'm not joking when I say I legit thought the game was going to be over after the Arishok fight. The trailer was just part of this problem because the Arishok's battle is the hardest part of the entire game. The final bosses in Act 3 are a cakewalk compared to this one. Heck, this boss fight was on par with the Archdemon. Heck, I'd even say the Arishok fight is harder because at least with the Archdemon fight, you can clearly see the shooty things and you can summon warriors to help you fight. The Arishok fight gives you nothing, no clear hints to how to beat it, and even after looking up the walkthroughs and strategy guides, it's still impossible. A legitimate tactic is to run around in a figure 8 and throw spells over your shoulder, which if you're not a mage, that's gonna suck. It took me going on 2 hours to beat the Arishok the first time. Safe to say, I have some grievances about that. After you realize the game isn't over with the Arishok fight, Act 3 opens up with the tension between the Templars and mages culminating in the Mage Rebellion. And this is the part where Anders really becomes a jerk to everyone.
The world is poorer for having you in it instead of her. Well, you've got a brain in there after all.
And eventually blows up the Chantry and forces you to choose whether to side with the Templars or mages. If your sibling is still alive, they will rejoin your party and help you fight the final boss of the game, and that's about it. And this is the next thing that I have a huge beef with. If you have Bethany join the circle and you side with the Templars, there is an option in the climax where you let the Templar leader murder Bethany. I cannot stress this enough. You literally give Meredith your blessing to kill Bethany. What kind of sick, twisted person would even choose this option? Anyway, you face both First Enchanter Orsino, he becomes a monster through blood magic, and Knight Commander Meredith, who has become insane due to exposure to a precious artifact you found in the Deep Roads. What, I didn't mention that earlier? Well, the game kind of barely does either. It doesn't matter which side you choose, you'll have to fight both bosses. And that's about it. You win at life, and Varric tells your story to Cassandra. Overall, this game is really scaled back and limited, but to be fair, it did the best it possibly could given the circumstances. And I know what you're thinking. I've complained a lot, so this must mean that Dragon Age 2 is the worst of the games and my least favorite. Well, yes and no. Yes, I do think it's the least polished, and that the linear storyline they tried to sell comes off as 3 disjointed acts and only vaguely relate to one another, but no, Dragon Age 2 is actually my favorite game of the series, and that's not a contradictory statement. The reason I love 2 more than Origins or Inquisition boils down to the element I love most about RPGs games in general. The characters. Dragon Age 2, more so than the others, had characters I genuinely cared about and wanted to learn more about. It wasn't like in Origins where I really didn't care about Oghren or Zevran or Sten. Each character in 2 felt like I had a real connection with. Even Carver, who I hated. Because of this ragtag team of misfits, this game made me laugh, made me cheer, made me angry, and even made me cry more than once. I'm not even joking, I was in tears during parts of this game. None of the other games managed to do this, and for that, Dragon Age 2, despite its flaws, gets my seal of approval. And that's all the time I have to devote for today. Join me next time when I tackle the third and most gargantuan installment of the series, Dragon Age Inquisition. Until then, keep on, keeping on, and stay classy.